Hey everybody. Actually, it really is kind of a long time no talk for us. Um, all right, so here we are, midweek again, sort of, and we have yet another new assignment. Um, and I will talk about that assignment, following up on that, things to look for, maybe even strongly suggest some hints, strongly suggest offer some strongly suggested hints, stuff like that, and of course talk about the rewrite to the reaction to the football program story. Okay. It's one thing I wanted to kind of address first is that, like, my purpose and goal in this, I mean, even though we don't have a lot of time, it's such a condensed amount of time compared to what the fall and the spring, it's almost unfair. Really. I don't do the exact number of assignments I do in the fall and spring. I do one less, but I do it over a faster period of time, obviously. But I do kind of allow around the same amount of time for each of these stories to be done. And I got a few people who are just not turning their assignments in. And I know it's a really fast pace we're working on here, but you really got to keep up with the lectures. It's just the nature of the class, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I don't know what else to do about it. I can't extend the class until August. I'm not allowed to. Um, so there are assignments to do, and then there's rewrites to do. And again, rewrites for C on up are optional. Okay, if you get an R, I've had people have had R's and didn't do their rewrite. I don't know if you're not getting this information or what, but I had to submit a warning grade for you. Um, and that means you're failing the class. Basically, if you haven't turned in an assignment and you've got at least one F, those people are failing the class, and you would know it. So, but my purpose in this class is not to fail people. My purpose is actually just to get people to write better, and I'm seeing it already. This is a very intelligent class. The work you produce already is pretty much almost outstanding. So, let's just try to keep that up. I know there's not a lot of time. You've had the class has been interactive. You've talked to me, you've asked questions of me. I've held office hours. Again, there's an opportunity to have office hours. Please reach out to me. Let's do that. Okay. All right. So let's first go to the rewrite of the football story. I should say football reaction story. And the one thing you got to keep in mind, and I'm seeing this is ones that came in. Obviously, I saw it like from the initial ones that came in, and I was able to actually put up an example of a story that actually did work. Congratulations, Jack. So anyway, and it basically followed this formula I've been trying to profess now over the last week. As we move along the semester, I try to get more into specifics of what people are really looking for in a news story. Okay. And what they're looking for basically is a story that actually reports what's there, gives you the feeling of like being there. And what this story does is it gives people the feeling of like what it's like to be on Rutgers and maybe to sit in a hot classroom with no air conditioning and at the same time, spending all this money on a football program. Or because I'm seeing a lot of mixed opinions, and don't forget there's also a discussion point on this. Okay. Um, and the discussion points were also mixed, and thank you for all your participation in that. But anyway, there's also the feeling like this also brings a lot of money and prestige to the university, and the people provided the anecdotes of them being at football games, stuff like that, and the spirit and the enthusiasm that comes out of that. Okay, so let's just go over this a little bit here. Again, this is something you all should have seen already, but just in case you haven't, Rutgers University students do not like the money is for the football program studying their poor continued performances. Okay, so this story actually does have some people who, if I remember correctly, um, this story basically is basically you could actually really take this site different ways. Jack didn't hear the student. He did not actually just rely all on the discussion points. You can interview other people too. And what he did was he actually, and you can do whatever angle you like, really, because there's so many. what news story is supposed to do is not supposed to be scientific, provide some sort of exact survey. You can show many different glimpses, a window of how people feel different here. There's groups of people who don't like the football program. There's groups of people who do like the football program with what it does. And then, I mean, you could offer a window into how maybe people feel mixed about it. Jack decided to take the angle of, people feeling negative about it. Okay. So you have the lead. Rutgers University students do like the money that's afforded to the football program, citing their continued poor performances. So there's like an overall statement made of how this particular group of people feel about the football program, and it's identified in the lead. It's an idea and an angle. An overall idea, basically, students' reaction to the football program. The angle is they don't like it because it ain't working. Okay. So that's what you need to do, is have some sort of overall umbrella topic, as I call it. Okay. Then you break it down into smaller parts and you see a transition. Okay. That the transition is like a mini lead. Some students have practiced patience toward the football team. However, the little success that the team does have is inconsistent, has caused some to withdraw their support. Okay. So basically, the first point being made here is that the team sucks. So why do they all like the money? Well, they kind of sit in the lead, but it's here basically not only does the team sucks, but doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Okay. So it breaks it down into some small point. Basically takes the macro here and makes it more micro. Okay. Okay. So why, give me an example and why people feel this way. It's too much money for a poor team. Well, it's because it's a poor team that has basically no future. Okay. That's the first transition. Okay. And you back it up with an anecdote. Dreen, I think that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry, I still don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. Student University understands that the time and money, a lot of it, is required when trying to boost a program to an elite level. He has expressed frustration at the length of the process and believes, I'm sorry, that is not money well spent. So, I mean, that essentially is anecdotal. It's basically showing somebody's personal frustration, their personal emotion, and breaks it down into a smaller point. Okay. They all go smaller. Basically, you have the overall idea here, provides one example of a who, what, where, why, when, like why do people feel that way is answered in this transition right here. And this anecdote brings us to a student and his own personal expression and feelings about it. Okay. Football team has proven time and time again that it's not worth it. That's a good quote. It's colorful. It's not the most colorful quote in the world, but it's colorful enough. It shows emotion. That's good. Okay. Then we go to the next transition. Other students feel that the football program has taken on too many liberties when it comes to spending on their athletes. So basically, this one just kind of hones in on the money part, just too much money being spent. So again, there's going to be a lot of why questions being asked in the story. Why do they feel this way? Well, they feel this way because of this. They feel it's just money being wasted. Okay. Eugene Lee is a student at the university who remembers when it was reported that the Rutgers University, a bunch of you brought up this one, spent $450,000 on DoorDash deliveries a year. He said he was disappointed at the size of the bill and questioned its necessity. Good anecdote, good single narrow point that basically brings us to the feeling what it's like to be on campus and to have this football team, having all its money pumped into it. And then they look at this and they see this, the personal emotion and frustration of seeing this happen. Okay. All right. The anecdotes get personal. Okay. So that's an important thing to do in a story, is to show personality and emotion. Okay. There had to be cheap alternatives or tougher regulations for it. There had to be something that monitored that, he said. Okay. Some students argue the football program is too large of a budget, and other programs or groups should have better use for it. So basically, now we're getting into not necessarily a why, but like what about it makes it bad. Okay. Why do well, because the money should be spent elsewhere. Okay. Actually, that's really more of a why answer. Okay. City University would like to see money improve facilities and buildings and campus for staff, mentioning the union demonstrators in the picket line. Saw examples of that being brought up. So you can see he actually went outside of the discussion point. One student said it was an enjoyable experience and did not love it, but it was not an enjoyable experience without expectations. He went to this is anecdotal right here. He remembers going to an Ohio State game and feeling dejected after a blowout loss. Okay. So he follows that rhythm. It doesn't necessarily be exactly like transition anecdote quotes. You could have maybe a couple anecdotes in a row, maybe even a couple quotes in a row, that sort of thing. The transitions basically help guide the reader through from point to point. Okay. All right. I also included in this announcement, also included this as an email, and that's the next thing I'm going to talk about, and that is the megalomania assignment. And I made a correction to that. I hope everybody got that. And that was, I put in the wrong date initially. I apologize for that. Okay. I wanted to make the date June, the day that he actually will turn this in, which is June 19th. Okay. So I changed that and put that in. So I apologize for that. Okay. Everything happened on June 19th. Okay. All right. So this release. So basically what we're doing here essentially is we are actually, believe it or not, moving into the second half of the semester. Yes. Can you believe it? The second half of the semester. Who would have thunk it? It's not even like, what, 2 weeks into this? But yes, this is where we're going to get more into the reporting end of things. Okay. The football reaction story kind of serves as like kind of a bridge to that. And I was, like I said, I was really pleased overall with the first story that people did, and then also the Leeds assignment. And one thing I want to talk about that is, well, that's the first section. Let me get into that. The first thing I want to comment about that is that was really an exercise in really trying to get you to really kind of like, again, think of not just the idea, but the angle of the story, to narrow the story down into its most unique form. And it starts with the lead. There's probably no better example of that than that number 7 on the first part. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I said this to a bunch of people, is really you should keep names out of leads unless it's somebody well known. It you want to try to make sure the lead doesn't get bogged down as not is not bogged down at all by anything that's unnecessary. So June Carter, I mean, famous singer named June Carter, but it's not that same June Carter. Okay. So it's not necessary to put that person's name in the league. If the name is like Smallwitz or something like that, they won't even be able to pronounce it. So basically you want to have based on the way it's spelled. So you want to basically like have just something that says a woman or a man or something like that. Okay. Or whatever. So, all right. So, this was this was how this is how the information was provided to you. And actually, there was just way too much information in here. Okay. Woman was charged. It's actually a 71-year-old woman was charged with attempted murder after she set her wheelchair bound, cancer-stricken husband on fire for eating her chocolate Easter bunny. Okay. So this was an example of really trying to basically hone down a story into its most unique form. And what you have to do is you have to make sure that there's at least one thing in here that signifies, that shapes it into its most unique form. There's different elements in here, and there's some things out there are basic that have to be in here because there's a certain action that happened. There was somebody set on fire, and there was somebody charged. So those things are obviously, those are the actual actions that actually took place. Okay, so those are the key things that have to be in the story, obviously. Okay, but what has to go on top of that makes that attempted murder more unique? There's a couple of things that come in here, and this lead, I would say right now, as it is right now, is probably even a bit too long. Okay. So there's different elements in here. Like one thing is that this husband is wheelchair bound. That's one thing that's brought here. Another thing, there's a cancer stricken. Okay. And then he ate a chocolate Easter bunny. Okay. I mean, the attempted murders, there's so many of them a year. There's probably about like thousands of them or hundreds of thousands of them each year. Right. So, I mean, you have to have that in there basically, but do you have to have the fact that he's wheelchair bound or cancer stricken? Okay. You have to have the actual action there, but then there's the other things in there that basically like make it a more unique angle. And yes, wheelchair bound is basically something that is unusual, not totally unusual though. Okay, I could probably say there's been thousands of those, especially it's been crimes against the elderly, people who basically you've seen these kinds of things where people take matters in their own hands. Another thing is the same thing with cancer stricken. Okay. Again, we've seen victims of crimes be that. This is probably again going to the hundreds or thousands of people in the United States. But here's the question you got to ask yourself: how many people, how many times has there been a crime involving this? Okay, once maybe. Okay, I can't think of another instance like this at all. So that's why I was like harping on people to make sure that you have this here in the story, just like with the Chinese food delivery story or lead. The most unique thing in there was that you're stealing his food, not his money. So that really had to be in there. Okay. The 53% increase in murders, huge jump. That needed to be in there. So certain elements, you have to have the action that's in there, but you have to have the angle that basically sharpens the lead and makes it more unusual. So that means maybe you take out this part right here to make it like a much more efficient lead. You know, maybe you take out one thing or maybe even two things, just so you make sure that the Easter Bunny thing in here is in here and it's an easier thing to read. You can put that maybe in the second graph or something. Okay. So you have to make sure that these leads they really work better when they're really just a one sentence and that's it. Okay. And that's one thing to keep in mind when you do this story on megalomania, is you have a lot of things that are going on here. Okay. But one thing is, as I said in the tape last week, or sorry, earlier this week with my friend Bill Borden, who's going to help us with this assignment. Okay. And that is that, this story is basically written in a way to help spin things so the company looks better than it is. Okay. What happened here was something unique and unusual. Okay. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's a huge hint. And that is that, again, as I said in the tape last week, this first paragraph ain't the lead. Okay. This is basically a lesson in as we move into the second half of the semester, and your readings, which is chapter 17 and 19, deal with this. Is that there's a big, and it's more important than ever nowadays, and that is public relations, public affairs reporting has become much more important. When I talk about is people doing the business of writing the media for the media. Okay. This is actually because of the way things are now, and because everything's digitalized now. And I mean, you have no basic comparisons because you guys lived in your entire lives in digital age, probably. But you know, back in the day, we used to just to get all our information from the phone or maybe like in-person interviews, stuff like that. Now we actually have to rely on the internet, and basically we have to actually a lot of times we get our information, so we have to get it so quickly that we have to rely on a spokesperson or somebody who works for a public relations firm, or a company. The company actually hires somebody in-house, or a police department hires somebody in-house, and you have to learn how to deal with them, and you have to learn how to actually like take the information you get and turn it into a story. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that now Bill's serving as the quote unquote director of corporate affairs, right? So he's the spokesman. And you can quote him, please. I know he might say, I tell you, don't use his name. Please use his name, okay? Whatever. He likes to do that. He's one of my favorite people on entire earth, but he likes to play like little games, which is great. But anyway, and that's you need to email. I would have emailed him already, okay? And basically, I would have emailed me. Basically, I've had a couple people email me, which is great. Basically, saying to me, "This is what I think the lead is," which is what I asked you to do last week. I mean, earlier in the week. Okay. I mean, I'm playing the role of editor here. So basically, this would be like, you covering some major event, and then you text me on your phone. You say to me, "Is this the right lead?" Like if you were out on the job or something, you're doing the same exact thing. Okay. So what you have to do here is just like with that Easter Bunny lead, is you have to kind of go through here and basically pick on what you think may be the most unique, unusual, and then maybe interesting thing. Okay. Now you have to ask yourself, I mean, like, you have to think about your audience too. And there's, business reporting is probably the most, you know, probably the most popular digital reporting out there. Okay. It's like the one area of journalism that's been continues to grow because they really need news fast. so many things happen in the business world that happen fast, they happen quickly. So that's where really like the internet and digital operations really lend itself. So you have to turn things around quickly here. And but you don't want to, yes, primarily your business, your audience, when any kind of action happens in business, your primary audience is going to be like people who care about business. But you always want to try to expand your audience. So what you're going to find here is basically you're going to find something that's going to basically help expand that audience. That's what you're trying to look for here. And even a business reporter will do that. Okay. They want their story to go beyond the business wire. They want it on the Associated Press wire. They want it on 60 Minutes. They want it on like New York Times. They want it out there. Okay. So you have to ask yourself like question like, well, is a restructuring of a company really that important to the public at large? You know, you have to ask yourself these questions as you read through the story. And it doesn't mean you eliminate this information from the story. It's just that, again, thinking of the inverted pyramid. Remember we talked about that last week? Most important stuff at the top, in the middle, and then like less important stuff at the bottom. So maybe that less important restructuring stuff goes to the bottom of the story. But the more interesting, sexy stuff, I'll say that, it goes to the top. Okay. The stuff that's really gonna like make you go, wow. Okay. So anyway, what you have here really is like a human story, something that really kind of goes beyond that. And I mean, yes, what happened, you have to think about what caused everything to change. Okay. All right. And there are many stories that are written about companies making changes and everything, but how many times do they happen because of something that's actually out of the ordinary or wild or whatever? And when you do this story, you have to think about Megalomania being a company. It's a made-up company. Okay, it's all being made up and everything, as I said earlier this week. But you have to think about, okay, is Megalomania is maybe like on the level of Disney. Okay, so if something were to happen at Disney that causes a shakeup, it would have to be pretty significant because Disney's a huge company, and you think that it's being run well, right? So if there's like some guy or some man, some woman, or whatever, they actually run this company, and it's such a successful company, but they get fired. That's a significant story, or not fired, but resigned. That's a significant story. Okay, remember that person. So anyway, you have to think about that. You have to think about like maybe that's like there must have been something significant that happened. Anyway, so you have to decide here like what's the main point of the story. Okay, so I already told you basically that the lead is not the first paragraph in the story is not the lead of your story. They're ready for their audience is the media. Okay, so they're going to try to spin it for the media so the media can go by their angle. Okay, that's what they're hoping. Doesn't always turn out that way, but they try. The media's audience is the public at large, what the public at large cares about. Okay, so then we go to the next paragraph. So they formed an office of chief executive, and these people are actually, they're not technically made up. Actually, this is my friend Bill. We watched the Mets. We've been Mets fans for a really long time, baseball team. And these are old Mets. So yes, I know you can put it in here. This is actually a way of actually preventing people from probably doing Chat GPT or something like that, or looking this up on the internet or something like that. This is actually based on something that actually did happen. Okay. And I will show you eventually in the video, like what actually happened here. So yes, crazy things do happen. Okay. So it's comprised of these people. Okay. And by the way, make sure that you keep up with the Associated Press style book. Okay. Because this is not written in Associated Press style. First of all, like names or titles after names are lowercase. Okay. When before a name, they're uppercase. Okay. Official titles. Okay. We also don't do Mr., Mrs., Ms., whatever before a last name, although some newspapers actually do that as their own style, like the New York Times. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, is this the most important thing of the story? Okay. Formed after a board meeting, and these are the people. Mr. Mian, who is he? Well, who's he about? Well, he batted 279 in 12 major league seasons. He sold this particular company, blah, blah, blah. Is that the most important thing of the story? Okay. Mr. Garrett was a co-founder of Megalomania. This is what they did. And by the way, I always mean to change this. Trump is mentioned in here. I have to admit, we did this story before Trump was president. Okay, we did this press release, and I always forget to take him out because it's that's my mistake. Um, and it's funny because like now he's president, okay, or he was president. So it's like, okay, so when I say to you, like, it's the most important thing in the story, it's fair. It's totally fair for you to say, "Oh my God, Trump's in this story." The guy who just got indicted too. That maybe that's the most important thing in the story. It's fair for you to think of that, but actually, no. You know something? Even if this were written after he was president, it still would not be the most important thing in this story. Okay, because that's not really what's relevant here. Okay, Trump's involvement. Okay, um, where is the old president? Where is he mentioned here? People first approach. TV wrestling. Okay, yeah, and then we got other things here. We got like the formation of the channel. Is that the most important thing in the story? Paris Hilton, Bob Ward Saul, Dick Cavett. Is that the most important thing in the story? Corporate change will not change as a result of restructuring. Is that the most important thing in the story? Okay. Andy Griffith line of products. Actually, it's funny. I'm actually, what the hell is it? It's funny. Like I may, I may have taken it out already. I'm pretty funny. Oh God. Anyway, I forgot. Anyway, just disregard me for a second. All right. Just checking through here. Just checking something here. Oh, it's really not helping me out here. Oh, it is. There it is. Yeah, I should have taken this out. Trump world. Okay. Anyway, that still would not be the most important thing in the world. It would be more important now, yes, because since he has been president, and that would be maybe one of the questions I would ask is like the relationship with Trump and blah blah blah. But he's an ex-president now, and it's still, and I know he's done a lot of crazy things, but it's still not the most important thing. And actually, now he's ex-president, it's even less important. So, all right, so that's anyway. So what they're planning on licensing intellectual property since it generates blah blah blah. The board of directors asked for and received resignation of Mark Bronson. Board's action were taken after internal investigation and consultation with external media. Is that the most important thing in the story? Board concluded that the facts reflected poorly on Mr. Bronson's judgment, undermine his credibility. Is that the most important thing in the story, or maybe with the most important thing in the story? I don't know. Okay, just answering something from work right now. There we go. Okay. And then we got what about the Nagel Media Company? Okay. So yes, so that's what you need to look for in this story. Okay. Anyway, by the way, there's my doggy. See my doggy? I meant to show you him some other time. Say hi, Bruiser. Hey, Bruiser. Good snuggle. Way to break up a video there, right? Anyway, so yes, that story needs to be 500 words. So after you figure out what the lead is, okay, well, I'd love to know like what everybody thinks the lead is right now, but I'm not gonna teach more. But this is all part of reporting, is trying to dig, trying to find that like diamond in the rough. Use a golf analogy there. And then you go to Bill. Okay, email Bill. May have to email him a couple times because you're going to get like some documentation that basically backs up why this action was taken. You need to focus your story around. That information is going to be very important. It's going to be stuff that you really need to put toward the top of your story, really, because it's going to make the story even more unique. And you need to look at it, and then basically, how do you attribute it? So we've done like we've done the he said, she said things. Well, a lot of reporting on the web right now, of course, is also done through documentation, stuff like that. I mean, a lot of documents are actually put on the internet, blasted on the internet. so you basically have to say according to the document. You have to attribute, you have to, that's the footnote, that's the journalism way of footnoting, right? According to or said. So you say according to the document, according to the voucher, okay? You get the information you need, and basically you say according to the document, according to the voucher, okay? And you're gonna get an Excel spreadsheet and probably a Q&A. You might even have some additional questions after that. Like why'd you take the action you did? Why did you feel was serious enough to do what you did? Blah blah blah, and then you take it from there. Okay. So that's what this is what essentially like. Again, the number one way actually reporters obtain their information is like through these SPOCs, these public information people who basically have to serve essentially as they run interference essentially for the people who run these companies, these police departments, whatever. Okay. Let me show you, share the screen again. I'm going to go over a couple of chapters again, chapter 17 and 19, and talk about that. Okay. But, it comes in many different forms. Police, like I said, a lot of the big police departments, the places that have money are able to hire the public relations firms or even like hire people in-house to basically do their spin doctoring for them. And that's essentially what it is. Okay. And look, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Okay. I've had people like, I've done this for years. I got to be honest with you, this assignment. Okay. And I've had people who have done this assignment and thought the big crime was that they spun the information in a way that kind of made it seem as though what they were doing was not so bad. That's not the story. Okay. That's their job. Their job. Yes, their job is, maybe it's a little shady, you could say, but it's not a crime. It's not even really like that's not even a mirror of a crime. It's not necessarily totally unethical. So their job is to basically kind of like redirect you in a different way and basically show that the company is functioning. So there's, you could argue there's really nothing wrong with that. Okay. I mean, it's shady. It's something that I wouldn't really want to do. I mean, I had an opportunity. I actually interviewed for a public relations job one time, and I was just hating it every second of it. And I think they could tell that, and they offered me a job as a result. It was more than 10 years ago. Um, so anyway, I mean, I ended up using some of the information they gave me though for my job. It was like some shady stuff going back to Bridgegate. A big scandal that happened in Jersey a decade ago, actually. Anyway, all right. So yes, that story is due on Monday again. And then the rewrite will be due a week after that. So the story is due on the 19th, and the rewrite will be due on the 26th. Okay. So don't remember, keep those dates in mind, and don't forget again that Wednesday, the 21st, is when the rewrite for the football reaction story is due. Okay. And we don't have much to do after that, actually. I mean, we do have another assignment after that, and then we feature assignment, and then we have our final assignment. Okay. All right. So anyway, public relations. So you basically have a lot of places like just have to kind of rely on themselves to actually provide that information. And I always go to my hometown, Point Pleasant, New Jersey, Jersey Shore, and how they provide their news. And it's interesting because like it is important to learn about how public relations works these days, and how it's spread and how it's distributed. Because now, I mean, the old days, again, it was just pretty much you have to call the police department to get your information, and it was always difficult in the whole thing. Now they have their own way of running interference. And even if they don't have a public information person, they can use things that actually help kind of provide and even filter that information away. And reporters have to work so fast these days. They have to, and they have to get their information so quickly that they, don't necessarily ask enough questions. They just pretty much and that's not good. You should go beyond what's offered there. But a lot of times when you're going fast, I mean, sometimes maybe it's just a water main break and you just need that information, you need to get it out. So maybe that's a good thing, is they'll put it on Facebook or something like that. Okay. They'll put like good news on there. Like this morning, our members participated in the law enforcement torch run. That's nice with a picture. Maybe that's a good community photo. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you could even put on patch. It's something, you have to make sure that this photo, of course, is something that's not taken by somebody who has like copyright to it, but sometimes police departments make that mistake. You know, they congratulate the graduating class. Oh, this is when the New Jersey Department of Health, this is their own information. They just essentially re-Facebooked it. This is when they had all the smoke and everything out there. That was a horrible day, wasn't it? Horrible couple days. And they basically sent out their additional information about what to do. Okay. This was essentially like news information in itself. Okay. Condensed, that reporters like that, you know. Child safety seat check today. Get help from the blah blah blah. You know, basically you want to go and get your information on like basically is if you're a parent, you want to know if you're doing the right thing as far as like keeping your child safe in the car. The click it or ticket campaign, that was always a good story we used to do for like Patch and everything, because like whenever there was any kind of like enforcement action where they were out there, like whether it was like actually like looking for drunk drivers or whatever, they would actually, you know, announce it ahead of time, but they wouldn't necessarily tell you exactly when they were doing it or where, you know. And this comes again in the press release form. Law enforcement officers from the Point Pleasant Police Department will join with the police around the country in cracking down on unbuckled motorists and passengers as part of the national clicker ticket campaign. Okay. Of course, first thing I want to learn is like where and when you're going to do this, but you're not necessarily going to tell you where. Okay, so, so, but it's actually important to let people know that this is going to be happening and when. Okay, that'd be like some of the first questions I'd want to know. Okay, I mean the press release. I mean actually, this is a fairly well written press release. They're saying when, you know, okay, but they're not specifically saying, they're not going to obviously tell you where. Probably maybe a line saying that the Point Pleasant Police Department declined to say like where. That's maybe the additional information I try to find out. There's always maybe some information I may want to leave out, but that would be like one of the questions I want to know is like, now if I was a reporter, I would ask it even though I would know I would not get an answer. Okay. And that is, when are you going to do it? Okay. So then like they probably come back and say, we're not going to tell you. So I would say that the Point Pleasant Police Department declined say when this is going to happen. Okay. Adding to the mystery of it. Okay. So yes, that's how basically public relations is often handled and done. Okay. Or there's maybe they'll go to their website. Okay. Let's see here. I work for an insurance company. So let's just pick one. Allstate. No, I don't work for an insurance company. I work for an insurance rating agency that publications. Okay. Allstate. So sometimes you have to like, you know, if there's something going on involving Allstate, like a merger or something like that, you have to call up their website. You have to basically almost like kind of dig and find where the hell their information is on this particular thing that happened. Okay. A lot of times you have to actually like scroll down to the bottom. And maybe you'll see something. Okay. And of course, you know that a lot of times, like when things happen, they don't necessarily want people to find out, okay, unless it's something they want to brag about. Okay. What I typically do is actually I'll do like Allstate press release. Actually, we'll just do a Google on it. Okay. See if that'll come up. And there it is, allstatenewsroom.com. News, press releases, and articles. Okay. And then we'll call it up. And of course, I got a slow computer. Allstate returns cash to shareholders through dividends. Oh, big news. So you call up Read More, and there it is. The Allstate Corporation announced today that its board of directors has approved a quarterly dividend. Blah blah blah. Allstate has declared a nice 89 sure. Okay. Well, what I want to know is basically, is that going to bring down my rates? I don't even know how to Allstate as an insurance company. We do USAA. All right. So, you know, that's great, you know, hey, but you know, let's expand it here. Like, what kind of an impact does that have on my bottom line as a consumer, you know? Because I don't have stock in Allstate. Who cares about that? So, all right. So that's how they kind of stash it. Let's look at like how the book talks about this. Again, this is all about public affairs reporting, and you know how basically like when there's certain events that happen, how do these different agencies respond to it? Okay. Crime and accidents, that's something that basically, again, is handled by police. And how they typically do it is they typically handle it in the form of a police report, okay? Let's see here. Philadelphia police report. And what they might do is they might not even give you a press release. They might give you like just the report, which is actually like a hellish thing to read through and try to decipher and try to basically like turn into something legit. Okay. They're just telling me here like where to do it. I'm actually just trying to find an example. Get a copy. Let's see here. Oh, what's this one? Crash reports. PSIR web portal. No, that's not it. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's something out there. I'm sure there's probably, I believe there's actually something in the book that actually will show it. Ah, there we go. A lot of times they're even like handwritten, which is horrible, and then it's written in police speak, okay, which is like just the most bizarre thing. Because it's actually written like what you hear on TV or something like that, and the way they talk. Like even like worse than Law and Order or something like that. Okay. This is actually something else, an opinion. I'm not really sure what that's about. But it's taking a long time. What you'll see is eventually is like a lot of lines that are like kind of written there together. Yeah, well, okay. This is actually something that actually is kind of actually looks like it's like a report. It's actually written about an incident that happened and like their various and basically they're ruling on it. More than 10 years ago, NHTSA associated a fatal head wound. And within minutes of riding a police vehicle, our homicide was not solved, and the investigation toward death, blah blah blah. So basically, it goes into this whole report. And right here, again, you're not seeing necessarily like what the conclusion of the report is right away. You probably would see that at the bottom, okay? And since we do not write conclusions in news stories, the conclusion is probably like actually what it is. You're going to see like recommendations. Looks like they're basically taking a look at like how maybe a certain incident should have been handled better, and it deals with diversity and requirement of further investigation. So sometimes a lot of the things that actually like are the most important thing are actually at the bottom of the report and not at the top, and you have to move it to the top. Okay. And I am getting that's unfortunate. I'm getting, let's see, what's this right here? Philadelphia Police Department Police Directive. What do we got here? I think this is police towing of vehicles. Oh, anyway, I'm trying to find actually something that actually is big enough for you guys to actually see. And I'm not getting that kind of help right now. Yeah, well, there you go. A lot of times it's like kind of written in like police towing of vehicles. It's written in these kind of numbered ways sometimes. Apparently this is like some sort of new directive they come after they come out and basically like have it like divided into different sections in the policies and procedures, and you have to basically kind of like go through it and figure out like, okay, well, what's the most interesting thing that's come out of this stupid thing? So, I don't know if you can really see that, but actually, that's actually a police report right there where, let's see if I where it's usually again, sometimes just maybe it's written in, it's an opinion again. Okay, we don't need that. See, there's like some handwriting there. You can see that it's usually written in this kind of way where maybe they put the name of the person who's the offender, whatever, and they'll actually handwrite, the incident. It'll be written in a way that's actually, like I said, it's a complaint, and it'll be written in a way that's actually like, again, police speak, where you have really like no idea what the hell they're saying, and you have to kind of like decipher it. Maybe even have to go back to the person. Court states that it's working, blah blah blah. Basically, it's written in a way it's not even like a real sentence. Okay, so yeah, a lot of times you just have to get on maybe email them or even get on the phone and just call and just figure out what the hell happened. Just like I asked you to do with this previous story of megalomania here. I mean, sometimes you just have to like just cut through the crap and just say like, okay, what is it that you're trying to tell me here? What is the most interesting thing here? Sometimes they may even help you. Okay. You get, you know, sometimes you just can't rely on that. Sometimes like can't rely on police to even release information because they might not. So you have to develop sources. You have to like develop. I'm not saying to be buddies with the police department because that's actually a little bit too. Because then maybe like that could actually color and shade your reporting or something. Oh, doggy alert! Doggy alert! Hey, hi, Bruiser. Yes, I know. We're talking about police reports that are very boring. Yes, I know. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So maybe it's a good idea to kind of like develop sources. And I'm not saying being buddy buddy, but the best way to develop sources really is to be credible. The police want to rely on you too. The police want to get information out there. And yes, there's a lot of times the police don't want to get information out there, and we've seen that with a lot of things that have been going on with the world and that sort of thing. But sometimes they actually just really I'm frozen. Sometimes they just want to basically get the information out there and like make sure that it's actually like credible. And actually, there is one police report I always go back to that where maybe like wasn't necessarily the police's fault, but we found out later that there was definitely not enough information released. Going back to the Ahmaud Arbery case from a few years ago, where a black man was running through a neighborhood, and he was chased down by some white people who basically tried to, basically make it seem as though that like they thought he was some bad guy or something like that, and they shot and they killed him. This was the original press release, or sorry, this was the original. Well, this was the original police report that was released on it, and some of these people actually were involved in this. Were actually called witnesses. They weren't even like, they weren't even essentially like, but they eventually were found guilty of being bad people and being involved in the crime. Okay, um, upon my arrival, I observed and see that here it is. Here's the police speak I'm talking about. Setting up a perimeter, blah, blah, blah. So and so is a witness to the incident. Well, we'll see about that. They thought he was some guy who was involved in prior burglaries, allegedly. Then this guy in a truck drove down. The guy had a gun. Man started saying, "Stop, stop, we want to talk to you." And then basically like that was it. Then basically said he was shot, and that's all the police report said. And when this was initially reported, that's all they said was that basically there was a black man that was running through a neighborhood and he was shot. You know, and it did seem that there was some initial reports that came out. At least some newspaper reports came out and basically um were like basically said exactly what the police report said, but didn't but kind of left it open ended. You know, but it was almost like this was like some sort of up and shut case. Like they saw somebody running through who was suspicious and they shot and they killed him. And then they basically blamed essentially like one person eventually in the deal. That I mean the police initially did not think it was right what they did necessarily. But it turned out that there were more people who were involved in this who who should have been identified as potential suspects in the shooting and being also connected as an accomplice in the shootings. And it took a video for that to happen, I guess, a couple months later. And here's the video. And if you listen to this video, this is a truck that's actually on its way to this scene. Okay. There's an important moment in the video. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it or not. That's the man who was running. Oops. Okay. I don't know if you heard that or not, but yeah, that's a gun cocking. Okay. This person who took this video initially was not a suspect or an accomplice or anything involved in this crime. It was just a person with a video that did not come out until a couple months later or something. When this video came out, it showed that this person who was driving this car and taking this video was involved and was armed and was involved in the melee and the shooting. Okay. So as you can see, that's another example why you just can't necessarily take somebody's like word for something. Okay. You have to actually like, get out there and basically ask additional questions. The police report, I mean, it's not necessarily the police's fault. I mean, we've seen the police make a lot of mistakes, believe me. Okay. A lot of bad things have happened. We saw it happen with George Floyd. Okay. And that was beyond a mistake. That was murder. Okay. But even the things like this, you can see that like it's not necessarily you're not necessarily get all the information you need on a piece of paper, okay, or in a press release. You have to go beyond that, okay, and maybe you have to do things like develop sources within the police department and earn their respect. And you're going to get like a cop who's going to say like that's not enough, that's not all the information that came out there. You're going to get a good cop. Okay, you may not believe me, but it's true. You're going to get a good cop out there once in a while who's going to come out and say, "Wait a minute, that's not right. We need to talk about this. We need to say what was going on here." Okay. I remember like 24 years ago or something like that. Bruce Springsteen wrote a story. I'm sorry, wrote a song called "97 Shots" or something like that, and a lot of cops were pissed off at him. But there was I think it was a Black Police Officers Association in New York that backed him up because it was right after a man, I believe, was shot 97, 98 times, horrible. And they backed him up because I believe it was actually a black man who was shot. And it was actually the Black Police Officers Association, black cops who actually like came out and said something about it. So you'll have that, okay? And then of course there's other things that come out that help provide information. You get incident reports, you get affidavits. Those were always helpful for us because they basically told the whole story beyond that scribbled press release or press police report, or maybe not the whole story, but provide more of the story that helps explain things because they have to actually required by law to provide more than just a simple police report. They actually have to provide a whole accounting of the incident. Okay. When you get information, you want to basically be respectful of people. You don't want to basically like, I mean, I've covered situations where it involve funerals, that sort of thing. That's really always a horrible thing, or you go to people's houses, you try to get more information and, sometimes like you get people who just don't want to talk about it and I think it's more important to catch flies with honey. So you be respectful of that. You don't stick your foot in the door. It's interesting, like, 20 years ago, I used to cover a lot of I hate to say it, fatalities that came out of Iraq. And whenever there was anything that happened involving somebody in New Jersey, I would actually go to their house. Now, what we used to do is, I mean, I didn't like the stalk or anything like that. That's awful. But I mean, we would try to keep close to the neighborhood. We would knock on the door. And that may sound like a horrifying, vulturistic thing to do, but actually, I found most people were willing to talk. And actually, what we would do is, and it's true, we would actually try to provide whatever space we had in the newspaper or the news site as almost like some sort of memorial to the person who was actually like hurt and killed or whatever. Um, it was interesting because like places like Newark and Jersey City, I found to be much more welcoming than places like Flemington and Summit. And excuse me for any people. My son lives in Summit. I don't know if any of you live out there, but I found places like that, the richer, wealthier neighborhoods, you catch my drift, be much more unwelcome to reporters than I remember going to a place in Newark one time where they literally had a carpet rolled out for us, literally a carpet. And they had like a whole memorial set up for the person who had died in Iraq. So you want to be like respectful of that. I mean, one time I remember covering like something, it was actually, I think this was in Flemington, and this reporter, I won't mention his name, Jim Dolan. Oops, sorry. He actually came up and basically started pounding on the door like this. I mean, that didn't work. And these people were actually helpful to us. I remember actually going to the scene where we're going. I remember like the first thing I saw was a cop car buzz me. Yeah, that didn't happen in Newark. You try to get more information, like again, like people who maybe like bystanders, that sort of thing. You try to get as much depth as possible. It's again all part of like getting as close to the truth as possible. the most obtainable version of the truth as possible, because again, you just can't rely necessarily on a press release or whatever to basically provide, or even a spokesperson provide information. Same thing happens also with things like, civil and government matters. When they do things like raise your taxes or something like that, they may bury that information in whatever press release, whatever meeting they have or something like that. Okay. But what you want to do is, we saw that actually with that one issue on the worksheets that where they raised the tuition at University of Missouri at 12%. A lot of times they're actually not going to necessarily come out with that information. And I'm going to show you guys this because I always do for my other Ready for Media classes during the fall and spring. I do a data journalism assignment. I'm not doing that this year for the summer, just not enough time. It's always this. It's also the assignment I hate the most. I'll admit to you, because it's an assignment that just confuses people and everything else. So you want to, it says here, like, you also want to like get information about like why they're raising taxes, stuff like that. Because sometimes they'll say like, oh, we got to raise taxes because like, oh, it's not affordable enough. And, we can't afford to pay our teachers and all this stuff. And then you find like, maybe you get information, like you get information like the salary information, and you find that they're hiring people like an aide. They'll give it like some sort of vague job title, an aide or a confidential aide. That's a favorite vague title. Like is getting paid like $120,000 a year or something like that, more than any teacher. And you're like wondering what the hell that is, And so maybe there's issues beyond tax increase that they say, oh no, we gotta like, we gotta spend money on teachers. They ask for like, raising, they want salary raises and all this crap. We heard of this with the Rutgers strike and all that, the same stuff, same crap. I struck for a week, because I knew that university had money. So, I was wanting to like push it out and keep going, So anyway, and the money did come out, didn't it? So yeah, I mean, what was I was thinking? Oh yeah, I always do. Anyway, I was talking about how I do the thing I always do is I have them do the last 5 tuition increases. Okay. So what they do is they have to Google Rutgers tuition hike and maybe go to like the last 5 years, pick any year of the last 5 years, be like 2019, and a Rutgers press release will pop up. Oh, there's a Daily Targum actually. But anyway, here's the Rutgers press release that comes out about it. And actually, they give them credit. They put it in their headline. It's right there. They won't always do that. Sometimes they'll bury it at a college or something like that. Okay. But then they get into the reason. It's funny. It's always about the employees. It's the first thing they say. Compensation costs for university employees account for 65% of the total. It's always our fault, isn't it? But and then they go through their press release and you see that they got other costs they're paying for too, they got grants coming in, all this stuff. Hey, they got money coming from other places too. And then the press release stops. Okay. But then you see like these new buildings being built all over the place. This is 2019, 4 years ago. I think it wasn't too long after that. What's that place called down there at the corner there? Of course from Voorhees Mall. They built all that stuff, so they built the honor school, so it's all the employees' fault, right? Huh? So anyway, so there's always something that goes beyond that. All right. All right, let's go back to the book. So yeah, it's not always what they say. Okay. And that's why the courts have the same thing. I had jury duty last week, I was wondering why this particular suspect with the high-priced attorney was not shackled when I saw other suspects of different persuasions are shackled. I was thinking to myself, I was going to complain if I was going to get called for jury duty and say, like, I feel like that the judicial system is completely unfair. I mean, this guy with the high-priced attorney is unshackled, but I've been in the court other times and they are shackled. What's the deal here? And they have to rely on a public defender. Not fair. All right, so that's chapter 17. Chapter 19 actually gets more specific into the actual use of public relations. Okay. Now, I always tell people that, like, as far as public relations are concerned, the ultimate goal is to get your control back. Okay. Because that's essentially what public relations does. It stages things. I said spinning before. It's also staging. Okay, because they want to maintain control over the subject matter. And there's probably, and it's mentioned, it's talked about in this chapter is like press conferences. Press conferences essentially are all like, um, and Trump was almost like an expert at it. Okay, sorry to get into politics here, but Trump managed to actually get more popular initially when COVID hit, um, because he was going out and he was smart enough. You never call him dumb. Okay, he was smart enough to know that it is actually working because he was getting out there. He was showing that he was on top of the situation, even though he was probably, you could question that big time, and it was spiraling out of control and the whole thing. Okay. Um, this is probably the press conference that stopped it, and he knew it because I don't think he had a press conference for like about 3 weeks after this one. It was the famous injecting people with disinfectant. So he was being his own spokesperson here. He knew PR. Okay. I mean, he's a business guy. He knows all this stuff. Okay. So this was the one that stopped. This is the one that finally made people say, what? Because before then, it looked like he was the guy in control. Okay.
Or something like that with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light.
He was talking about ways to cure COVID.
And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. The new headline is Trump asks people to go outside. That's dangerous.
Anyway, so yeah. So that's what people say. So like, calling them on that. But that's what you got to do. You got to like go beyond. You got to get control back. You got to like not just rely on a press release or the press conference, which is the ultimate way to spin things, because that's actually hard to control. You have to actually almost corral the person or people connected to the person to say like, wait a minute, he said this, and I want to know more about this. And when they go out there and they kind of say that, and even Biden does this too. He goes out there, does the press conference, and then leaves. That's their way of maintaining control. But what you've got to do is you got to get that to control back and say like, wait a minute, you came out and you said this, like what does that mean? Just to be fair, I mean, like remember when Biden came out and said that like it was a COVID-free summer in 21, and then like suddenly there was like another surge right afterward. It was like then he was getting lots of questions. He didn't hold a press conference for a while, which is also a way of maintaining control, basically like kind of hiding in the shadows. PR agencies, I mean, the White House has its own like spokespeople, that sort of thing. Companies have that, but then there's also places that actually hire PR agencies. That's where Bill works, actually. Bill works at a PR agency, essentially, and basically they do the work for them to basically kind of control the message but and it's also important for them again to do that because you want the information to come out, you want it to be true and correct. And most times, I would say public relations agencies do a good job of getting that information out and getting it right, because sometimes like you get like a person who's in charge of a company and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They may think they know what they're talking about, and then they act like this is a power trip, but actually they don't. And it's actually up to the public relations person to actually like get that information. Okay. Public relations practitioners use various media, and they usually come from the media, so they know how to do it. They get the information about their client to the public. They determine which media outlets will best serve their purposes. They also, yes, that's true. And then when there's a Republican president, they call on Fox. It's a Democratic president, they don't call on Fox. So there's different types of stories that come out, largely because the public relations person wants information out there and also wants to publicize things, and also that's also part of their job too, is to publicize things and get it out there. Okay. So yeah. So, you list a contact and follow-up person, you want to like basically make sure that like somebody is on there on the press release. So you, like we did with this press release just now, You want to write well so it makes sense. One thing that Bill and I do when we actually have in person, we show this terrible press release that at AOL. Remember AOL? They had like 20 years ago when they made this big merger with Time Warner. It was written so horribly, and they had like the biggest loss in like the history of like everything. And it was like not in like till like 2 or 3 pages into the press release you learned about it. And all that does is just piss off the reporter and make the reporter like want to get at you more, you know. Yeah, visuals help, that sort of thing. I mean, like you put all this stuff online now. You've had like a new development coming in. Jack Nicholson helped put in a big pool. Yes, Jack Nicholson, he's from Manasquan, New Jersey, but helped put in a big pool at Manasquan High School, and there was like all the plans were laid out and everything on the website, and that just helps with the story, and it helps even like illustrate the story. Okay, you want to rewrite for newsworthiness, obviously that's something we've talked about already. You know, like you want to basically write it for the people who are actually reading it. You want to make it more objective because it's only one side of the story, so maybe you want to make sure that it has more of the facts, but you want to be objective because you want it to be like something that actually like, you know, is not just a press release. I mean, if I were to actually like, we had the time, I would actually do more than just do the Megalomania press release. I would actually have when I have digital media, I actually do this press release in that class too. I do a little more with it. I actually try to get more of a side to it, you know. You would actually try to get more than one opinion or something like that. Okay. All right. So that's it. So that's what we got to do again. We got to do again Friday today. Okay, when you see this video, I'm recording it before Friday, but is when the not Friday, I'm sorry. Wednesday is when the rewrite of the football reaction story is due. Okay, and then Monday, that a week from Monday. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting this all wrong. I apologize. This Monday, okay, this Monday is when the Megalomania story is due. And Wednesday is when so then you'll have a week to rewrite that, which should be the 26th. And Wednesday is when the am I getting this right? Holy crap. Let me just give me a second here. Yeah, okay. Megalomania, oh boy. I'm getting all confused right now. I apologize. Whoa. Okay, so Megalomania is due Monday. The rewrite for the Megalomania is due Monday. The rewrite for the football reaction story is due on Wednesday. Okay, and the rewrite of Megalomania will be due on that following Monday on the 26th. Okay. All right. So that's it, guys. Sorry about the confusion. I don't know if I said anything different at the top. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you wanted to do any office hours, and that's it. Thanks very much.